What's going on, everybody? I just wanted to talk about something briefly. There's always debate between Google, Android, and Apple and what people prefer. Something that, to me, just to chime in on that Google did is unforgivable. And that's what I want to talk about. So, basically, since like the beginning of time, Google entered the smartphone space primarily as a software competitor. Okay? Software, 100% software. They had the Nexus lineup a little bit, but even then, they were primarily focused on software. The Nexus lineup, they had to partner with other OEMs like LG and a few others to do the Nexus lineup. But it was always software until they launched the Pixel lineup. It wasn't until Pixel that they truly cared about hardware. They were always software. And basically, since the beginning of time, their implementation of the home button was like a virtual key, a software-based key that was next to the back button and multitasking button. They had a virtual home button. Basically, since the beginning of time. Apple had a physical home button. Okay, so these were the implementations. Apple had a physical home button, a little circular button that you pressed physically. Google had a software-based home button. What's unforgivable to me on Google's end is fast forward 10 plus years, over 10 years, iPhone 10 comes out. It was the 10th anniversary, I believe, of iPhone. Apple had said to themselves internally before it launched, because they were trying to expand the screen on the iPhone, they said, could we make a phone without the physical home button that would be as good? Something that you could blindly do. If somebody put a blindfold over you and they handed you an iPhone, 8 and under, you could find the home button with the blindfold on. You could find it blindly. It's so easy. Want to go home? Click this button. And they thought, could we do something like that without a physical button? Is that possible? They brainstormed, they agonized on this, and they finally came to it and they said, we can. We'll do swipe up. But another thing they had to debate was that they had to move the placement of the control center. Control center was how you access the flashlight and the calculator and all these other things. And it was great because all you had to do was swipe up to get to the control center. So if they implemented this home button, they would then have to say, where do we put control center? What they ended up doing was putting it in the top right as a pull down. So instead of a swipe up, it's a pull down. Arguably, slightly worse placement because it's way quicker to swipe up than it is to pull down. But they thought to themselves internally, the pros outweigh the cons. If we give them a swipe up, then they could also pause and jump right into multitasking mode and swipe between the apps. So we're giving them two things. The home had the double click, swipe up and hold, boom, you're in multitasking. So they think through all of this. They completely rethink the home button. They roll it out, they push it, iPhone 10 ships, and it's a freaking hit. Google and every other Android OEM copies this. And this is the one big thing that I say is unforgivable, because Android was the owner of the software space, of the software home button. It's like if I was running a company and Google and Apple were applying, I'd turn to Google and say, how did you miss this? You were the primary software. That was your whole thing. You didn't think about this? You didn't think about this. Now, there's a million other things like that example that Apple has done. They spent months thinking about how to package the cable, the charging cable, in the box with the iPhones. Now, why would anyone do that? Because they cared. They cared about how you received, like what it looked like, what the experience was like, rather than just tying up a cable, putting a rubber band on it, throwing it in the box, saying, fuck it. They're like, let's agonize. They also spent months agonizing over the trash can icon on the Mac. These are just two examples of how Apple gives a fuck. They think about everything and they agonize over the details. No one has attention to detail like Apple. And that's why it drives me nuts when, like, you ask someone sometimes, oh, why do you buy Apple products? And, like, they'll say the ecosystem. It's like, fuck the ecosystem. It's the care, it's the consideration, it's the attention to detail. It's the fact that they're combining the hardware and the software to give you the better experience. There's a million things I would say before I said the ecosystem. Apple actually cares, and it's unforgivable that Google missed out on the swipe up to go home when they had a virtual home button for over a decade. That's all I wanted to share. And I'll talk to you guys later.